In this video, we catch up with Scott from Tradiac. Tradiac being a prop firm, we talk about the prop firm industry. We talk about how traders like yourself can go through the different phases and prove yourself so that you can be backed or funded by a hedge fund. We also get through different trading strategies. We talk about how the markets are changing. So do sit back and enjoy the video. So, talking about this,
So
it leads to where, we were talking about with what happened on my Forex funds. All right.
yes,
It's come to light.
uh-huh.
They have been manipulating prices. They have been doing some things with prices, helping people fail their challenges. We're not going to talk too much about that. The It's still under investigation. It's still under payouts are still pending. It's all still up in the air. But with that happening, or
Right.
with that happened, how do you think that's going to change the whole prop firm trading industry?
Well, for us, it already has, because what came out when I read their indictment from the government structure, there's two things that qualify them. And I've had this conversation with people as well. If what's reported to be true is actually true, they're pond scum. Because what they really did is they really turned around to the industry with a middle finger and said, screw you guys, and really showed the greed and inherent greed that basically the worst of us as people actually are. What's enough money for you? They made 150 something $million. And I don't know that how much more money do you really need to have a nice life? But in that same sense, they didn't just take the average trader. They took the ones who are successful. And they said, Scott's coming in, Jen's coming in. Oh, they passed the last 3 challenges. We need to put them in a special file so that we're aware of them. And then they went out and they purchased and created automated software to purposely widen spreads, give us fictitious fills, and mess with us, essentially, to make sure that we're not profitable and we can't advance further toward the upper. Because if you think about it, all of these prop firms have the top end, which they're trying to sell you. You too can manage 4 million. You too can manage whatever the number is. But if they're not backed by anybody, and the vast majority of them, I think, have now found out that the vast majority of firms are paying out via the marketing budget, if they have one, and or client fees coming in. So that's why you're seeing all that kind of stuff. My FF was probably no different in the beginning, and they got to a portion in size where, unfortunately for them, they did what they did. But for us, as a recompense from that, I read what the report stated, and for like U.S. clients, for an example, it said you are not allowed to give U.S. client access to trade on ledger or off ledger for CFDs. Period. So trading the Dow, the indexes for a U.S. person on Forex markets is illegal. We can't do it. So we at Tradiac said, okay, if that's how they feel about it, we stopped taking U.S. clients because of that. We don't want to be out of bounds with that. So it's morally and ethical, from us and our obligation to do things the right way, whether you're regulated or not. You should still do things the right way. So we stopped taking U.S. clients because of that. Other people, I don't know I can't really speak to what they're doing. But my FF, obviously, they're going to have their day in court and they'll have their defense. But from other prop firms, I think I've talked about this on the sidelines as well. No one's ever going to show you what's under the skirt, so to speak, as far as what their balance is, what their ledgers are.
Yeah.
You're really going to have to come down to the fact of what's my inherent risk. And then on the flip side to that, you're going to see that the strong capability for a retail trader is your only real true risk is what you purchased the program for. So if you purchased a $95 starter package, for example, your $95 is really what you're risking. Your time and effort to make, let's call it demo money at that point in time, is fictitious money. It doesn't really exist, but you're being paid for your time and your skill level of making money in a demo account. But that's not real live money you're actually making. You're just guaranteed a payout, or supposed to be guaranteed a payout, if you perform in that level of opportunity. So that came out. So from what I'm getting more clients asking about demo trading versus live accounts and the difference between the two. And I can tell you this, demo trading is a win-win for everybody. And I'll tell you why. My FF numbers, if you just look at the numbers they had on their books as far as client orientation and then what they had if it was real cash, you're in billions. They couldn't have afforded that. And then number two, the losses that they would have had taken over that period of time would have wiped them out before they ever even got there. So you can't take 100,000 clients and fund them with $1 million each. That's just not practical. So now you've seen, as a direct result of that, you see on most everyone's prop firm websites now, simulated returns, simulated money, simulated results. and the funny thing is it still says profit share, right? So it's really not profit split because you're making simulated money. It's really that you're getting 90% of your performance of what you actually made in a demo account. That's really what that is. So that's where that comes from.
Okay. So, saying that, then you've talked about how you're different, how Tradiac is a little bit different. Tell me more, tell everyone else more about Tradiac, how it started, how is it entirely different? And we spoke about this before, just go through that.
Happy to rehash that. Tradiac is got a special place in my heart, and it's not a household name yet, obviously, but Tradiac came about in its conception about a year ago. I was consulting with a hedge fund. They were looking to get in the space. They didn't know how. I had a very good friend who's a CEO of Tradiac who was running a firm called Nordic Funder, who's a prop firm that's been around for a couple of years. It's a parent company. They've had this 2-year window of experience. And then they came to me off to the side and said, hey, I'd like to talk to the hedge fund, for an example, about doing this opportunity. Do you think they would support it? So as a conduit, I put them both together, and then they got married. So Tradiac was born to be something different because what they wanted was a different opportunity in the marketplace to say, we don't want to be like everybody else because everyone else is really just throwing prop firm scenarios out there as far as you can manage this, you can do that. But what's the real upside? And there isn't really a lot of upside unless you're 0.1% of the traders who can encapsulate yourself to the top of these challenges. But what else is out there? What's more? So having a hedge fund who has lost, hedge funds routinely, not just this one, but lots of them, lose money entertaining traders all the time. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of traders who've shown me statements who look magically like they're the next one. You're going to be able to build it around, and then they get started and they can never replicate what their performance has suggested they've done in the past. And so that's why it always says, past performance isn't indicative of future performance, right? We all say that because we don't know.
Actually, I'll jump in here a bit on a different tangent. Do you think that traders don't perform as the past because the trader has changed? Well, is it because the trader has changed? Is it because they tweaked the trading style? Or is it just, market conditions that make it harder? Or is it just that the trader can only trade some particular market conditions?
It's interesting because I've dealt with traders who actually, I got my start working with a trader who worked as a chief financial officer at Citibank in Australia. And he was the head financier of their desk. So I'm thinking, this is my guy. And soon enough, he showed me his trading performance and it wasn't sustainable, right? And he was like, no, this goes back into like 2020. So pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, right?
Yep.
And so I think cryptocurrency needs to be brought into the conversation as well, because before the advent of cryptocurrency, you had a lot more volume in Forex because it was really Forex futures options. Those were your kind of bonds and things like that. But Forex was really $3 trillion a day going through the marketplace. And then you had the advent of crypto. Well, you have a large portion of generational people that have just gone to trading crypto. And it's interesting because, I have siblings that don't know anything about finances that have said, hey, do you have a crypto account? They've never asked me about a foreign exchange trading. They've only asked me about, hey, do you have Bitcoin or do you have Ethereum? But they've never talked to me about trading foreign exchange. So you take this portion of this application out of the markets from the volume perspective, and then COVID hit, which is a worldwide pandemic, right? And then liquidity starts drying up. And I was working with another guy who was managing. He's been, again, named the bank. He's been there. He has a book of like $30 to $40 million he's managing. And he was having a hard time being successful. And it was that 1% month was good for him. And I'm like, whew. But his drawdown, this is a key for any trader who's listening to this, his risk was minimal. He always kept the risk close. So his drawdown criteria was never below 5%. He would hit 3 or 4, bounce back to 0, 3 or 4, bounce back to 0, 1 or 2, bounce back to 0. So he couldn't find his placement. And what I've come to realize, and you as a trader have probably realized this as well, market placement is key. And so when you have the liquidity in the market, doesn't always suit. So like, for example, I know algo traders who leave their stuff on 24/7. Well, we know in the Asian session has less liquidity than the London session. And then you go into the US session and you're hoping for liquidity there. And sometimes you have no liquidity in the London session, but you do all of a sudden in the US session. And it kind of works that way, right? So sometimes you go into the US session and there's, for whatever reason, no liquidity. So, and then all of a sudden the London session that night goes bonkers and then you have all kinds of liquidity. So you have these little patches of liquidity, and we're trying to all kind of mine that little piece together. And it used to be 10 to 15 years ago, that was all the time. You could throw any trade you wanted, and all of a sudden you were going to be in profit to some level of degree. And then that dried up for obviously a host of reasons. And then now we're back at this euphoria that's the modern day gold rush of prop firms. And now you have people coming back in the Forex market, and everyone is, got a Lamborghini and watching a house to match, and we're all experienced and professionals, and selling our products. And then there's volatility coming back in the markets, which volatility, if you know how to manage it, is how we make our money. So we want the volatility there. We want to be able to have this trade go from this point A to point B, because that's how we make our money. But when there's no liquidity, we might start at point A and never get to point B. And that makes it really hard for people who are used to that to make money. So I hope in a nutshell that makes sense, but there's a lot of evolving market conditions in Forex that change and evolve all the time. And, for example, I was working with a guy who runs a family office managing $100 million. He wasn't successful. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. But the common denominator I've learned between all of them were they all kept the risk extremely low, because they all didn't want the dreaded phone call saying, I blew out your account. So they're happy to say that maybe I didn't make you any money, but I certainly didn't lose you any money.
So it's, keeping risk low, but also understanding that the markets are constantly being are dynamic. It's constantly changing. It's just maybe keeping risk low while tweaking your approach to changing markets.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do in COVID when all the world's central banks are, all trying to figure out what their levels of interest are so they can change, but then they don't change. They hold levels at next to zero, right? Because they're trying to get people to live and to sustain themselves. So no one's doing any sort of central bank modification of interest rates. And so if you're not doing interest rates anymore and the market's flat, how do you deal with that? Because there's no incoming of opportunity there. You're not taking the euro dollar now against the dollar and going, okay, which one's stronger? Because they're both now the same. Neither one of them.
There's no carry. There's no carry.
Yeah, right. So now you get non-farm payroll. You might get some CPI in there. You might get some other things to try to move the market. I remember when non-farm payroll would move the market 1,000 points in a day.
Oh yeah, and I love those days back then.
Exactly. And now you're like, oh, can I please get 50 to 100? Can I please get 50 to 100? It's a whole different ballgame. So what do we do as traders? We either adjust and adapt, or we get left behind. I mean, how many trading statements or how many traders have you worked with in the last, let's call it even 2 to 3 years? I mean, go to my FX book and just look at all the ones that are on the wayside that don't have anything behind them anymore. They're done and gone.
Okay, so coming back to Tradiac, coming back to how you're different. We mentioned the hedge fund.
Yes.
The
hedge fund behind us is
how that works. Tell me more about how that works.
The hedge fund behind us is looking for key traders. So how that marriage we previously talked about as far as Tradiac and the hedge fund behind us was kind of an adoption, and the ability for a retail trader to come along, because let's face it, 90% of the people out there don't have access to come into a hedge fund, especially from a retail orientation. So if you don't have the backing of anyone spectacular, or you didn't come out of a JP Morgan Chase bank or educational platform, most people don't know somebody who's running a hedge fund. So this was a great opportunity to say, okay, well, let's facilitate this. And of course, yes, it is simulated trading, but that helps the hedge fund in the regard of they're not having to lose a bunch of money to entertain people. And it still gives the opportunity for the underlying client to say, well, I still get to be paid out if I'm successful. And I have this opportunity at some point in time to be trading for a fund if I can show my skills and that's to their liking. And if they see potential in that, they will grab the trader, they'll pull them off to the side. We'll have to sign an NDA agreement between Tradiac and obviously the trader and then the hedge fund, and then they'll interview them and away they go. Obviously there won't be a 90% split anymore, but the whole thing behind this is, if you want to be a professional at something, and we all aspire to be in our tasks of life to be the best at something, or work towards an end goal, because let's face it, with the MyFF thing, if they do come along with regulation, the vast majority of these prop firms are going to go by the wayside. And so this opportunity for people to really kind of express themselves and their talent is also going to go by the wayside, because your $95 that you paid for an account to get, let's say $10,000, now that $95 is what you're going to actually have to put in your trading account. It's really hard to make $10,000 off $95, right? So there's a beautiful part about all of this, that if people can just be honest and ethically moral, we can protect that, we can safeguard that, because from a retail perspective, that gives them the ability to really mortgage their futures and their talent level and their skill and ability, and coming in with a very low initial capital base to expand into meaningful money. I mean, if you can buy a trading challenge, for an example, at $100,000 or $1 million, and you're able to be successful at that, you've changed your life. You can't do that with $1,000 in a retail account. You won't change your life. You might be able to buy ice cream, but you're not going to be able to.
Barely, maybe if you trade well.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on what kind of ice cream you want.
Yeah.
But this is a wonderful opportunity for traders to market themselves, the talent, the skill, and the ability, because traders, as you know, have some sort of an ego, especially the younger crowd. They're eager to prove themselves. They have social media followings now, and so to me, I'm going to challenge those guys. Let's see what you have.
Trading has been running for a year plus now, you're saying. Do you see any trader who is coming close to getting into the reach or the realm of the hedge fund?
Well, I just had a call with the hedge fund a couple nights ago, and I said, let's really break this down into criteria of identification, where if you can pass 5 levels, 7 levels, 8 levels, and really define that level. And so that's what we're doing now. We're working out the details of that. But preceding that, we've had a guy, I think a couple, pass maybe 3 to 4 levels, and then they seemingly get caught and they start scalping, they start changing their trading strategy, and they lose their orientation, what got on there. And that seems to be what kills people. But what I would like them to understand is with Tradiac, whatever you start with, say you buy a $10,000 package, every time you pass your assessment, you get scaled up by that same figure. So if you start with $100,000 and you pass your 10%, let's say, then you have a $200,000 account, and then a $300,000 account, and then a $400,000 account. So along those lines, you got to pass 10 challenges to get to the $1 million. And in that process of time, it's the market psychology, I think, plays a point for people to get stumbled on, because now they're trading at a level they haven't been to yet. And as you climb through those levels in reality in life, you start stumbling because you start putting more pressure on yourself, or you get too confident, you start trading outside your norm, and you get exposed. The market will eat you every time.
I was just about to say, you're being too kind saying that they stumble and they get too cautious. It's more like they get greedy. Everyone's trading at 100,000. They think it's small, I'll go steady. Once they get to 1 million, they start thinking they'll get to 10. And then they take a more risk and go a little bit crazy. They push the limits a little bit too much.
I've seen these trading gurus on Twitter, for an example. They show one trading certificate and they start marketing themselves as the next Forex guru. I said, that's great. Show me 3 or 4 in a row. They go, by the way, they don't. Yeah. So, and what I try to tell people is, you're going to have a losing month. You're going to have losing days. But managing your risk is paramount to this exercise. If you want to trade for the hedge fund, that's really what this is. You have to be able to manage that risk. That risk orientation is the absolute gold card to ring in that doorbell. If you can't manage risk, you're never going to get there.
Would you say that the foot in the door to a hedge fund is not so much about how much you can make, but how well you protect it?
You're exactly spot on, 100%. Because they're not looking for someone who can pop a $100,000 day. Because what do they do for the other 364 days of the year, right? So we're going to go through that 100 grand, and that's great, you made that. But we want to see something that we can go, okay, I'm going to go back to my bigger investors. And, this is not a small hedge fund. We're talking, 50, 60, $70 million they have under management. And they're looking for people that they can go to their next biggest investor and say, yes, this person we stand behind, we're vouching for, let's bring in another 20 million or 50 million, and let's find the threshold of the strategy. That's what they want to do. That's the end all goal. So when people come back to me saying, I can't understand why you don't take scalping, I can't understand why you don't like high frequency trading, because those are already deemed incredibly hard to scale and incredibly hard to risk manage appropriately. So I don't want to set you up to fail. So there's no reason to do that. If you want to do that, then you need to go somewhere else that's more suitable, because not everybody wants to trade for a hedge fund.
I mean, there are some high frequency trading hedge funds. There are some algo hedge funds that would be appropriate for that, but it's just different mandates on hedge funds, I guess.
Yeah. Well, being regulated, they have mandates that they have to be under too. So they can only trade, like, for example, I don't think they can even trade certain cross pairs. So they're really strict in that regard. And so they're not going to get in trouble for anybody. They've got to manage their system of requirements that they have. And so we have to come under that same system of requirement from a trading perspective, because we have to give them what they're looking for, or else it doesn't make sense, right, to participate. And from their perspective, they're like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for anyone to come along, any normal person that no one's ever heard of before, and be that diamond in the rough. Here's your shot. You want to audition for something, this is your shot. And by all means, take it. And so the passionate part of me comes into, when you have the things that are going on in the world right now, money's hard to come by. And so if you can really, truly do this, and you can do it in a successful fashion, you don't just change your life. That domino goes into your family and into your friends, and you can have a completely different lifestyle that you want. And you can be at home, and you're going to be trading remotely. You're not going to have to be brought, you're not going to be trading inside the hedge fund, for an example. You'll be at home and remotely trading. So there's going to be a lot of benefits for you if you can do it. So if I'm in this, I'm a competitor. I'm in it to win it, and I want upside. Other prop firms, it's like manage my money to a point. You're cut off. Here's your ceiling. You're limited. If you can get there and sustain it, a fund structure is completely different from that. You're going to be trading at a different whole scenario. They're going to, reach out to you, talk to you about your personal strategy, what made you successful. Okay, what do we need to do to wrap ourselves around you to help keep you successful so they can go on and they can do better themselves? Everyone's looking for trading talent. It's just really hard to find consistency in.
So it sounds like you've got a whole plan going, get onto Tradiac, trade well consistently, get introduced to a hedge fund, get serious money. That's what I'm talking about. Continue that performance, right? That seems to be the journey for the trader. What's the journey, or what's the plan for Tradiac? Next 2, 5, 10 years? Where do you see it going?
I think we're going to continue to scale it and grow it, and to the benefit of the trader. So for example, I know that I've talked to the hedge fund guys numerous times about it, and their goal is to continue growing it and taking it to places that most prop firms can't get to. That's our goal. But I don't want to disrespect anybody else out there, because obviously the prop firm industry is there are good people, and the other people who aren't, well, that'll take care of itself over a period of time. But in this process, what we're focused on internally is you're not going to get gimmick sales promotions with us. You're not going to get all the kind of fluff and stuff. That's for somebody else. If you really truly want a shot to be a big league trader and manage big league capital, because seemingly that's possible all the time. I get asked that all the time. What can I scale to? Is millions. And it really comes down to the answer is it really depends on you, the trader, what your performance will allow them to scale you to, what you can psychology orientated manage appropriately from a risk perspective. And I'm here to help you. I want people to achieve. My job consulting with a hedge fund is to find people who can succeed. And if I can help with that, that's great. If not, it's up to them to either this is for me or it's not.
I've got my account, so I'm going to be on the way for that. Just make sure you highlight my account number for that as well.
I will mark it up, put an asterisk by it, star it, and
just make sure it's not extra conditions. Just make sure it's asterisk for something to watch, not just extra conditions.
Well, what I can say is this: they don't see any name come through. They're only going to see account numbers. So account numbers and trades. That's all they're ever going to see. So what I get to see is emails going bink, 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 pass level, pass level, pass level. And when you get to level 10, if we can get to level 10 with one person, I personally promise you, and you can put this out to the world, I will personally introduce you to
this is going out to the world.
Okay, perfect. I will make that promise right here, time-stamped with Jin Dow and Scott myself. I will personally introduce you to the hedge fund, if not fly you out there. You can meet them in person, the whole 9 yards. That's how serious this is. They want good people. This is not just a gimmick. They want good traders. Unfortunately for me, in my past experiences with traders, it hasn't been this good. So I'm personally a big proponent of them saying, yeah, let them come to us. Let them pay for an audition. Let them do things this way, because we've done it their way. And I can promise you, every trader that has failed or taken liberties on their account and blown them out or do things that they said they weren't going to do, never apologize for any of it. They just simply move on to somebody else. So this is their opportunity to say, no, you can come to us. We're here. We've got all the assets in the world to help you and to support you if you get to this level. And we want to put money behind you. But ultimately, it's up to you.
Okay. So how many, I've seen the Tradiac Discord channel grow. It's growing at a good steady pace. I think we were talking about it, got 300 over members in there right now. How has Tradiac been getting the members so far?
Marketing. I try to turn word of mouth advertising into people asking them, hey, if you have a good experience with us, would you tell somebody else?
And generally, where are they coming from?
They're coming from all over the place. We've got traders from basically every walk of life, whether it's a Facebook ad or whether it's a Google AdWords, or they're finding us on Google searches, or they're finding us from another Tradiac trader that's come through and had a pleasant experience with us. So it's coming from a different thing. And word of mouth to me is always going to be the most important, because you log onto something, you see something on Google or you look on Trustpilot, that's somebody else's experience. And it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence, but you want to have your own experience. And if you have somebody involved that, like for an example, if you were trading at Tradiac and you're like, hey, Scott, I've had a really good experience with this prop firm, you should give it a try. I'm going to give more credence to that than just logging on to some Google search.
Yep. Well, and no, I mean, like, also in which geographic areas? Is there any particular areas that you have more clients on or less? Or
we have a lot in the UK. We have Pakistan to Japan to Australia to South America and Argentina. Obviously, we don't have the US anymore. We have some in Canada. So that's basically the client base is kind of all over, but more European countries right now are taking a liking to the Tradiac version.
So we need the Asian representation to come up a bit more now.
Yes. I am at Singapore. I'm hoping we got a couple. But I will say this: I do not stand behind very many traders, but I will stand behind you every day, all day. I've watched your content, and before you and I ever talked about Tradiac, I watched for a month or two before we ever had a conversation, because I want to see how you interacted with your students and clients, and your top flight character comes off every day, all day. People inside of your Discord chat love you. You're getting handfuls of guys and gals coming in all over the world every day. You have a really good ecosystem of people in there. So even if you don't use Tradiac, they should absolutely subscribe to your service. They will absolutely benefit from it and will absolutely help any level of experienced trader.
I try. I do what I can, put out content. Let's get more people on the right content, on the right information to trade well, to trade better, to trade more money, especially through Tradiac.
Well, if they can, and I want to go back to one thing and rephrase this. Where can you take, let's call it an investment on $100 in a $10,000 account, just as a baseline. Obviously, it's greater than that with different account sizes. But where can you invest $95 and make $1,000? And legal and do it. And you're not in Vegas, you're not in some casino. You can do it with your own education, your own technical experience, and you can take a swing at the bat with betting on yourself as an individual. And then you can, obviously, you're doing more than 10x your money. So where do you get that kind of significance in return for such little money that you're doing a purchase with? And as long as, again, we touched on the MyFF stuff, we don't do anything like that. That's hot garbage. I'm a firm believer in you win or you lose on your own merit, period. And that's what Tradiac does offer you. We're not doing all those reindeer games. You either win or you lose, because if you think about it, it takes us out of our ethos, right? Because we're never going to find a successful trader for the hedge fund if you do those kinds of things. So we want people to scale because we want to be able to put significant capital behind them. And myself or you, who, if you're an educator of traders, you want to be able to have that gold star saying, hey, my traders are passing at a higher rate than other people. That gives me more credit, showing that people are taking your education. And they're able to go out and they're managing their own money. Now they're in a hedge fund, or they're managing, private capital and to some other degree with whoever. That's a great, as a mentor, a teacher, and a coach, we all want that. We all want success for our students and our clients and our people. I'm no different than that. You come through Tradiac, your family. People have personal stories and backgrounds. You want people to succeed, and I can't help but root for people.
But as much as we're talking about the $100 to make for the $10,000 account to make $1,000, there is going to be things you need to know about trading, right? You do need to know what you're doing. It's not everyone's gonna, not anyone can sign up for an account and click away and start making money. There is things to learn. There are things to experience. Do you think that someone should get onto a prop trading account to learn how to trade, or should they come in with half a strategy or a full-on proven strategy?
Interesting you say that, because on live chat, I've had conversations that go for hours with people. Now, technically, live chat, what's he doing on live chat? I'm humble to the sense that I want to help people, period. And the best place to do that is the place where you can touch them first, which is a live chat forum. So I enjoy meeting people because I can help them. And I've been asked that question, like, okay, I'm brand new. What do I do? Well, any successful person, you can probably attest to this yourself, had a mentor of some degree, someone to show them the ropes, somebody who was honest with them, somebody who gave them feedback, somebody who coached them through a process to where they could figure it out on their own. And then kind of like, there's a reason why when we have our children, they're with us for a period of time, right? We have to teach them about life so they can go be a successful human being, hopefully, at the end of that run. Trading is no different. If you don't know this game and all the different things that come into it, and I think you're a great example of this because you have core content you give them from A to B to C to D all the way through, and it's not contrived and, I got to start A. Well, now I'm confused because now I'm at D over here. It's very much streamlined into, if I can figure this out, I go through A, B, C, D, I'm going to be able to trade the markets. I'm going to be able to know what a pip is. I'm going to be able to know how to open a buy-sell box. I'm going to know how to put my stop loss in. I'm going to know what a risk to reward ratio is. I'm going to know what support and resistance is. There's a lot of key components that people just think, oh, I'm going to just push this button and be rich. And there's a lot of things that go into it that only a seasoned person can help you with, because we've all been there.
Yep.
And if you fail the challenge, I add to that, if you fail the challenge, it's in reality, there's any good trader will tell you they've blown out accounts, because we all have at some point in time as a learning process to find that success down the line.
I didn't have this in the list of questions, and I just thought of this, right?
Sure.
A client comes in on Tradiac, they fail the account once. Maybe they've breached, maybe they're learning how to trade, or they've just hit that market conditions, they just hit the 5% mark, or whatever reasons. Then they try again. They do it second time. They do it a third time. At which point, if you're in contact with the client, at which point would you tell a client, this might not be for you?
Good question. In fact, that's a great question. In our Discord channel, you will see me screaming risk management. And you will see a very quiet gallery of people who read it but don't say anything. So, I have offered to talk to people numerous times to help them understand certain things, but I can't make myself help them. They have to want to listen to somebody or want to help. But most people at this day and age are either embarrassed about the fact that they've maybe struggled. And that's one thing I like about, your Discord chat, for example. People can show they're losing trades, and then other people, they're not there to pick them apart. They're there to say, did you look at this? Did you know about this? And kind of help educate them. So the next time they come, I need to consider these other factors that maybe I didn't understand before. And that's what trading is. Trading is an exercise of communal opportunity to say, here's my experiences of 30 years in the marketplace or 20 years in the marketplace. Let me pour into you that. And then you take from me, you go to you and say, okay, well, here's my experiences. And you take little pieces of that as well. And you apply those things together, and you have this thing called experience. And then you use that experience. So that's the goal. So yeah, I have seen traders, the average person, I think, will, if they do end up failing a challenge. I hate failure. I hate the word failure. So I'll use the word breach,
Okay.
And I get email notifications of the levels. And I see traders, I got notification 30% breaches, 20% breaches, 25% breaches. And so that all goes back to managing risk. And people who don't understand that or don't put that at the forefront, it's bad. But, I will say this, to paraphrase this too. When you're going on Twitter and you're going on social media outlets and everyone's trying to tell you about the Lamborghini and the life and the watch and the this and the that, it really takes you down the wrong path, because then you think you need to trade at maximum lot sizes, and you two are going to have all that. If you just do this, you're going to have that. And what they don't share with you is all the warts that they had to incur along the way to become a successful trader, if they indeed even are one anymore. But it's a journey. It's not just something you push a button one time and do. It's a process of things you have to do over a period of time to become a consistent trader. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. So as we come towards the end of this, I want to find out, we've got Tradiac has been running for a while now. We know you're backed by a hedge fund. There's a pathway for clients to get to a hedge fund to manage serious money. I like to call it serious money. And there's good support on Tradiac. We can chat with Scott's always there to chat with. I'm sure there's a lot of other people to chat with. The Discord channel is very vibrant. It's growing. It's a good community. Now, let's talk about the success of clients. What's the biggest payout that Tradiac has done? And also, is there one person, apart from me, is there one person who has had consistent payouts? So what's the most consistent payouts you've seen, and what's the largest payout you've seen?
Now, because we're smaller, you have a lot of people starting off smaller accounts. So there's lots and lots and lots of $10,000 accounts. So I've seen lots of the minimal payouts of $1,000, $2,000, somewhere in there. The higher ones I've seen, which is unfortunate because there was a gentleman who would have just probably been paid out if he hadn't violated his own trading rules and breached them. He would have been paid out around $60,000. So that would have been quite significant. And short of that, it's been about in the teens, anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000, 15,000, 10,000. So any kind of numerical value right in that capacity is what I typically see. But the vast majority of payouts are smaller because people are starting on smaller accounts.
So has anyone is there any account that has caught your attention where month to month they've got a payout?
The gentleman who I just spoke of, who was going to have about a $60,000 payout, he was catching the attention, and then he went completely off the radar, started doing things he didn't normally do, lost his risk management orientation, breached his threshold. So that was disappointing because you're like, yeah, okay, that one's one to watch, right? And even then, some of the smaller ones, because if you're trading at $100,000 account and you're trying to get 10 levels to $1 million, you got to go 10 levels. You start at $10,000 account, it's a whole different criteria. So now you got to go obviously 10x, 20x that level to get there. So for me, I've told people if you want to build trust in something, start with a $10,000 account. Because once you have your edge, you can say, okay, I'm done with this $10,000 account. I've got my assessment, right? I get my $1,000. I pull back my $95 entry fee. Now I'm playing with what I call house money. I'm playing with your money. And so now I'm going to go buy a bigger challenge. And basically it's risk-free because I'm just using my proceeds from my profit to go again, but have a greater level of opportunity to make profits in the market. That's what I would consider if I was trading it that way. That's exactly how I would do it. So.
Okay, fantastic. So, hey, if anyone watching if you want to get to that 60,000 payout number without breaching the rules, if you want to get to the even consistent payouts, it's possible on Tradiac. We found out more about Tradiac. The links will be in the comments below, or not in the comment, in the sections below, I think all around as well. If you have any questions or if you have any comments, put it in the sections below. Thank you, Scott, for your time. We found out a lot about Tradiac, a lot about trading, a lot about the pathway towards a hedge fund. Thank you for your time, man.
No, Jin, and thank you. And I want to, as a Tradiac challenge, I want to personally, and it'd be a great honor and a privilege to have somebody from your network be that first person to pass all 10 levels and personally meet the hedge fund. I would love nothing more than someone to accept that challenge and say, I'm going to be that guy or girl. Challenge accepted. Hopefully someone comes within that network. If not you, hopefully it's one of your students.
I'll send the army across.
Amazing. And thank you for your time, and thank you for putting this on. You've always been a class act, and I know that you always will be. And I know that you always care about your clients and put them first. So it's an honor to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.